Hi and welcome to the Future Couch on the topic of sovereignty. Today, economies are decentralizing as we speak, which means collaboration is key, be it cross-country or cross-company. We need to work together. And big challenges are faced in a world that is data-driven, which begs the question, how can we make sure that we establish sovereign data structures and also establish operational technology accordingly? I am joined by two experts in this field, Klaus from Atos, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Christian from Detecon.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for both being here. Let's start off with an easy question. So, what does sovereignty mean for you?
Well, there's actually quite a lot of definitions of sovereignty in the market, but I think the most prevalent and the most important is if I am using sovereign services, I am in control, I can choose which infrastructure to use, who is operating my infrastructure, where I locate my data, what happens with the usage of the data in the field. And it doesn't say it has to be one or two providers. The choice that I have, the choice to put data, to put infrastructure in a given place actually forces that there's also a little bit of sense of interoperability between the various parties and portability of data. So sovereignty, in a quick word, is my choice to put data, applications, infrastructure where I want them based on my requirements.
That's a beautiful, brief explanation of sovereignty. I love it. So, Christian, what would you say? What are the benefits of sovereignty?
Yeah, the benefits you can clearly derive from what Klaus said. You have this freedom of choice to do with your data what you want. You can build also the setup for that as you need it. But in order for it to work and not always to reinvent the wheel, so to say, you better have this kind of operability in place. You know what's compatible with each other, what are the interfaces, what are the right data models to exchange with each other, what are the connectors and so on, so that you actually can start with it and build upon each other faster and in a quite reliable way.
That sounds amazing. So, Klaus, what would you say, what could be potential next steps when it comes to these benefits, to getting there?
Well, the main challenge in these setting up of, we call it federated infrastructures, is that you actually find a common agreement on what are the rules, what are the policies everybody's applying to, because if we want to interact, if we want to build something, we all need to have a common understanding who's playing by which kind of rules. We need a certain level of technical interoperability. We need to agree on an architecture that helps us execute the choice where to put data, where to put infrastructures. And one of the things what we do see, which is a little bit the opposite of sovereign choices, is singular platforms where everybody says you have to do exactly like the one platform decides things to do. We need to have the capabilities for all of the players in such a system to actually participate in such an, call it ecosystem. So some very, very basic services like identifying who I am, like being able to publish my services to the wider area of all different providers, the capability to have some basic controls over what's happening with the data is the next steps, which quite frankly are being addressed with a number of industry initiatives. In Germany, we've started, the BMWK has started October 2019, initiative called Gaia X, which is trying to address these points. There's various initiatives around data spaces, like International Data Spaces Association, which now, just as we walk around here at the Hannover Messe, we see the first real implementations in the automotive industry, Catena X, Datenraummobilität, a mobility data space in Europe, which is using these facilities to bring these sovereign data spaces up to life.
Thank you for these great examples. Christian, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think it very well supplements other industry requirements we see. We also talk about all the time. We need flexibility, we need transparency. That's all what we require, but that can only come to fruition when we have actually this data models in place. We have these data spaces we can work on, we can build upon, as said before. And then we have maybe a resilient supply chain. That's also what you find in Catena X, for example, that you have a track and trace, that you really can see where all the parts are moving for the whole supply chain from third tier, second tier, first tier supplier, OEM, and later on. But at the same time, and I think that's the important point to stress with data sovereignty, you can make a choice in the chain. You're not open for anything. You can be open to everything, basically. You have control over the access of the data. You have control over how you want to distribute it, if you want to sell it, or things like that. That's all up on you, how far you go into. But I think that's what we are also advocates for. You should have a choice.
So as I understand it, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but rather it's really
absolutely not
for everyone.
Absolutely not, because what we do see, and I think this comes back to the choice, the sovereign choice of the different companies. If you're, for instance, looking at an automotive supply chain, there's very, very tiny suppliers which perhaps have some on-premises, some capability. We have some suppliers that say, I'm only comfortable with a European cloud service provider. We have other companies who say, oh, I'm working with the big American players. And sovereignty means you have the choice to select what kind of infrastructure you use. You have the choice what happens with the data. Do I keep it to myself? Do I share it across the supply chain? Do I make it widely available to create new mobility service? It's your sovereign choice. And it's your sovereign choice to say, I do it on this infrastructure or that infrastructure, and we need to, the topic we need to address with sovereignty is making sure that still this choice provides you portability, interoperability, and the capability to link all the various pieces together.
Amazing. So you're giving back a lot of power to the companies that choose to be sovereign.
That's kind of the definition of sovereignty, isn't it?
So much power. I have one last question for you. Can you give me one very concrete example of what it would look like to have these benefits of sovereignty?
Yeah, so benefits, just to start generic, is basically the foundation and the cornerstone for everything you want to do with AI. When we talk about that every place here at Hannover Fair and elsewhere, also the basis for the business data ecosystems. Because you know how to deal with data and you can control it, basically. But a concrete example might be, for example, coming from Catena X, when you're able to securely track and trace where the lithium-ion battery for your electrical vehicle might have come from, what condition it had when it was placed in your car, so that you feel more safe.
That's a great example. Thank you so much for providing that.
I just want to add one thing to it.
Sure.
The important thing is all these examples work if really everybody in such a supply chain can contribute. And sovereignty helps the small players, the medium players, and the large players to be part of the overall story. It's not something coming top-down. Sovereignty gives everybody the choice to participate in such an ecosystem.
Yeah, so it's really collaborative, so that it works.
That's it.
So let's do it.
Thank you so much. Well, that was a great example for collaboration that is key for great sovereignty. Tune in for the next session on the Future Couch. If you like this one, check out the other videos. That was it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure being here.